Love is of source unknown, yet it grows ever deeper. The living may die of it. By its power, the dead live again. Love is not love at its fullest if one who lives is unwilling to die for it, or if it cannot restore life to one who has died. And must love that comes in dream necessarily be unreal? For there is no lack of dream lovers in this world. Only for those who love must be fulfilled on the pillow, and for whom affection deepens only after retirement from office. It is entirely a corporeal matter. Preface to the Peony Pavilion by Tang Jianzhu, 1598. Hey friends, it's me, the Ebony Otaku, the well-rounded nerd. Today I want to go back into that delightful world of one of my favorite Asian authors, Lisa C. As I stated in my first book review video, I absolutely adore books by Asian women in particular because their stories over time and of women just kind of resonate with they resonate with me. I was going to say all of us, but I can't speak for you. But they are just such deep stories. And you can see how women in history have evolved and women's place in society has evolved over time through the eyes of these women in such a distinct culture. The first book I reviewed by Lisa C., one of my favorites, Snowflower and the Secret Fan. It was set 200, 300 years ago in old China when a lot of the traditions were still around. I was like, you know what? I'm still feeling that. So let's dive deeper into a narrative that is still in that same vein. So today we're going to take a look at Peony in Love by Lisa C. Now, this is the part where I tell you spoilers. It's a novel, and it's hard to spoil an entire novel because there's so much detail and so much that happens. But this is actually a spoiler for half the novel because I have been unable to finish this book because halfway through, my heart... I am a sucker for a good romance, and I love a good, sad, sobby romance. But this one got too sad even for me. I promise to finish it. I've got some downtime coming up, so I'm going to finish it over that time. But it gets real sad real fast. So let's back up and actually talk about the book. So our central character is Peony, and she lives, of course, in old China. She lives in a culture where women who are from distinguished families are named after flowers, which I think is a beautiful tradition. That actually got adopted later on in the red light district culture because those were seen as noble names. So 100, 200, 300 years later, if a girl's named after a flower, it's going to be assumed that she does a certain kind of work. But traditionally, it was a name that denoted nobility because flowers are beautiful, they're delicate, they're meant to be taken care of, they're precious. You protect and nurture a flower so that it can grow and bring beauty to everyone around them. And this is the world Peony is growing up in. What I find interesting as well is this is also within the time of foot binding. We talked about this in Snowflower and the Secret Fan. Foot binding was more than just, oh, let's torture women. Although I consider it a form of torture. The purpose of foot binding was to make a young woman more marriageable and also to teach her filial duty and responsibility. The goal was to get the foot around this length. It means 7 or so centimeters, a human thumb, a man's thumb in particular. And the feet would become something of mystery and almost alluring in the marriage because they are a mystery to the man because they're not involved in the process of foot binding. That was a woman to woman process. Mothers did it to daughters while grandmothers watched over and made sure it was done correctly. And if a girl made it through her foot binding time and came out with perfect feet, one, it showed she had a mother who paid attention to her and cared about her, because something like 1 or 2 in 10 girls would die from the foot binding process, either from infection, if a bone broke at the wrong time, blood clot could break out, go to their heart. There are many ways to die from foot binding. But it also showed that the girl was dutiful. Not only did her mother take the time to do this process properly, which means she was raised right, well, she has passed that on to her daughter. This shows that she can bear up the pain of childbirth. It shows that she is able to be obedient and do what it takes, that she'll be a good daughter-in-law to her soon-to-be mother-in-law. All of those things are wrapped up in the process of foot binding. And even the poorest peasants would go through the trouble of doing it, creating girls who were unable to do a lot of physical labor, because if they got that right, the size of a woman's foot could help her get a step up in life. But then we come to Peony. What happens when you're already born into a distinguished family? Peony's father's an important man who's got all the money. That's my summary of him. And because he has all the money and all the position, and he's got an inherited court position, he's got all the wives as well. The only thing he doesn't have is a son. His wives keep having girls. And in those days, before they knew that it was actually, the wiggler that determined the gender of the baby, women, of course, got blamed for that. How dare you not have a son? Like we can choose. Oh, yeah, let me just, and it's going to be a boy. Anyhow, that's a whole other discussion for another day and another time. But he doesn't have a son. Peony is the oldest daughter in this family of multiple wives, wealthy father, wealthy lifestyle. Because she's a firstborn daughter, that entitles her to a certain kind of life later on as she grows. She's one because she's come through foot binding. She's dutiful. She's a little airheaded, but, teenagers, come on. But being such a good daughter and a first daughter, that means, hey, she could marry a first son, or marry into a very important family. The marriages were more than just let's produce children. They were to create connections between families as well, to pass on generational wealth or to strengthen alliances, that type of thing. So she, even though she's not a son, she's still an important person in the household. And, she's getting to that age where she's having to help with her younger half-sisters go through their foot binding. Every woman in the house has had to go through this process. If peasants are going to bind their feet, there's no way the first daughter of a wealthy man, wasn't going to have that done to her. And all of them have to do it. And if she's going to be a good daughter-in-law one day, she has to learn the process. So she's starting down that road. And we learn about her life, because she is a wealthy man's daughter, she is treated like her name. She's a peony. She's a flower. She's beautiful and protected. She lives in a world where women are kept behind the gates. In Snowflower and the Secret Fan, we learned a lot about the women's chambers upstairs. The women had a separate world in life from men. Men didn't go upstairs. That was solely a place for women to do women's work, to embroider, to pass on knowledge and songs, to create their dowries, do the foot binding. All of that took place upstairs. The only time a man would go up there if someone was dying and they needed to be carried to the hospital, and even then, it was questionable whether he was going up there if there was somebody strong enough to bring him down. So it's their own closeted world. And once they get into their foot binding years, just going outside, period, wasn't done much, even among the lower classes. Well, Peony's of an upper class, and she's still kept behind the gates in the women's chambers. It's just her chambers are bigger and prettier. And she knows her culture. This is how everyone lives their life. She knows a husband's going to be chosen for her. And like any girl, imagining what her wedding will be like. Will she be beautiful? Will he be handsome? Will they like each other? All that kind of stuff, which her mother quickly lets her know it doesn't matter if he likes you. You're getting married to whoever we choose. So this is how it works. That's how I got your father. That's how you're getting your husband. And if he wants 50 other wives, whatevs. It means he's rich. It's just the culture. And she's okay with it. She's like, yeah. Well, I mean, if you don't know anything else, why would you rail against it? She's going to have a privileged life regardless, except for those broken, deformed feet. I'm going to get off that now. Well, living such a closeted life, comes with a certain level of curiosity about the outside world. Even though she has gardens to be in and other women of the household to spend time with, servants and all the rest of it, she doesn't know much about the world of men, as they call it, outside the walls of her family compound. Even to the point that if there are visitors coming into the home, if they are not family members, like direct family members, and they are male, well, the women have to be shielded from them because they don't want unwanted feelings to creep up and become a hindrance in the processes of making matches. Because you don't match people based on whether they love each other, you match them based on whether their signs align and the families agree and all that kind of stuff. Love, what's love got to do with it? Literally. So that's how she's interacted with the world. Well, let's skip ahead a little bit in the book. One day, her father, who be wealthy, has a performing troupe come into the family compound, which is super exciting because, if you can't go out to the movies, bring the movies into your house, basically. Now, he's got that kind of money. He's got pay a whole acrobatic and opera troupe money. They're not poor. But to watch the show, or what they can see of it, they have to sit behind a screen, the women of the household. So they can kind of see what's going on. They can hear any opera that's sung, but the purpose is not to keep them from seeing the show. The purpose is to keep any males who have been invited from around from seeing these precious flowers that belong to the head man of the household. So many layers to this. Well, I mean, when you never leave the house, something like a performing troupe just gives your heart the palpitations. Oh, you hear that jingling? That's my doggy. He's going to make an appearance somehow in every video. She had to, step out for a moment and take a powder to cure the vapors. I'm Southern. I'm sorry. And she shouldn't have taken that step out. Because when she steps out into one of the gardens, there is a young man there, gazing at the moon, admiring the flowers, and just enjoying the peace. She ain't seen a man outside her family, and she's young. You know what she does. Instantly falls in love. I think in the book they trade like 7 words together. It's real short interaction. But she knows that even speaking to a man that's not her husband, betrothed, or in her family, that's a huge scandal. I mean, it's a level of impurity, and she's got to be, given away as a pure bride. So that gets wrapped up real quick, and she makes her way back to the performance. But she's got love on the brain. Her head's in the clouds. She's so happy. It's going to be bad. Well, soon after that performance, and her heart's all filled with the flutters, she gets notified that her husband has been chosen for her. Dowry is being arranged. Gifts are being sent and received. The date has been chosen. It's gonna happen. But Peony is in love with a stranger whose name she doesn't even know. She becomes despondent. Gradually, day by day, she's less interactive. She shuts herself in her room. She stops eating. She's depressed because she sees a man she wants to marry. For a brief second, she felt like she had a choice. And this isn't a world of choices. This is a world of duty, of family obligation. You don't marry who you want. You marry who we need you to marry. But she's in love. She doesn't want to give up the idea of the man she actually loves. Now, there are dates arranged for her to go and see her family, her new family, and interact and meet the women and all that kind of stuff. She misses those times. She can't make it. She's too weak and sick. The doctor is sent for. There's nothing wrong with her. She's just losing her spirit. The life is going out of this little flower. And every day she's withering a little more because she knows she can't have the man she wants or the life she wants or anything she wants. Why does it all have to be chosen for her? Well, you know where this is heading. Peony dies. And that's where the book gets real sad, and this is the part where I quit reading. Because Peony had unrequited love, and she was a restless spirit, she didn't go into the afterlife. Her spirit lingered on earth, and it lingered a little bit around her family, then it lingered through the funeral procession, then it lingered to her graveside, where after all the mourners had left, there was one figure standing there. And to her shock, the one left standing was the man she had seen the night of the performance. The man she wanted turned out to be her intended. And the rest of the novelization is Peony's spirit haunting this man and pining for her unrequited love. Now, I haven't finished this book. I'm gonna, but that's where I've gotten to. And the reason I went ahead and talked about it is because that's how good of an author she is. That much happened in the first few pages. And so I can't wait to finish it. I feel like my heart has recovered and I can go on and get through the rest of the book. I hope you'll read it as well and take a look at other authors out there. If there is an Asian author out there that you love, let me know who they are. I'm always looking for another book. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe, and let's have a chit chat about it in the comments.